So let's now finish up with our last rule here in 7.1, as labeled in the text, rule number 3. Rule number 3, hypothetical syllogism, for short HS, starts the same way as modus ponens, starts the same way as modus tollens. We need to start with a horseshoe statement, any statement where the main logical operator is the horseshoe. However, unlike modus ponens and modus tollens, to do HS, we also need a second horseshoe statement. So to do HS, two statements where the main logical operator is the horseshoe statement. So for instance, let's say B horseshoe C, and this will once again just be the generic visual explanation. What we're allowed to get out is A horseshoe C. So now let's go through the verbal explanation. This is the visual. Let's go through the more important verbal explanation to really understand what's going on here. Verbal explanation of HS. First thing that needs to be met, we need two horseshoe statements. Unlike modus ponens and modus tollens where we just need one, for HS we need two horseshoe statements. Exactly what we have here. A horseshoe B, B horseshoe C, two statements where the main logical operator is the horseshoe. The second condition that needs to be met in order to pull off hypothetical syllogism is that the antecedent of one has to be the consequent of the other. Antecedent of one is in fact the consequent of the other. The antecedent of one equals the consequent of the other. And what we're allowed to get out is, so to speak, the leftovers. And there's a nice easy visual technique here to allow you to see this. Think of it as though we're cross-canceling here. We're not actually cross-canceling in that these like parts here don't go away. We're not really canceling. We don't get rid of them. Again, just a visual technique here so you can see clearly what's going on. A horseshoe B, B horseshoe C, two horseshoe statements. Antecedent of one is the same as the consequent of the other. So here's the visual technique. Imagine that you were cross-canceling. You're really not canceling. But imagine that you were getting rid of those like parts. And now you get out the leftovers. The leftover parts moving from left to right, and make sure you keep them in this exact order, moving from left to right. The leftover parts would be A and C joined together, once again, by a horseshoe statement. So that's hypothetical syllogism in action. As is the case for all of these rules, the ordering of the lines makes no difference whatsoever. We might very well have B horseshoe C, followed by A horseshoe B. Same here as in our first example, I've just reversed the ordering of them. Doesn't make a difference whatsoever. Antecedent of one, same as the consequent of the other. And what we get out here is the leftover parts. Once again, A horseshoe C. This time, our quote-unquote cross-canceling was a backslash instead of a forward slash. Makes no difference, just as long as they are, in fact, a diagonal line. Does form a diagonal line. For instance, what if we had A horseshoe B, A horseshoe C. Here we have two like parts, two common variables. The A's are the same here, line 1 and 2 respectively, but the antecedent of one is not the consequent of the other. In this case, they're both the antecedent of a horseshoe statement. So if we were to try our visual trick, notice here that our canceling would give us a vertical line and not a diagonal. So this one doesn't work. That's not a case of hypothetical syllogism, whereas these two do work because our quote-unquote canceling gives us that nice, neat diagonal line. Forwards or backwards doesn't matter. What we can't have is a vertical line. It's got to be diagonal to cancel out those leftover parts, and we get to cancel out that is the like parts, and what we get is the leftovers linked together by a horseshoe. In this case, A horseshoe C. So two statements where the main logical operator is the horseshoe, the antecedent and the consequent, the antecedent of one and the consequent of the other, that is, have to be the same, have to match up. And if that's the case, moving left to right, we get out A horseshoe C. And the order here does matter. Notice that we didn't get C horseshoe A. That is not the proper conclusion. What we need to get out is first one first, second one second, moving left to right. What we need is A horseshoe C. And again, just as the case for all of these rules, the two lines need not come one right after the other. They could be separated by any number of lines, so long as we have on some line a horseshoe statement, on some other line another horseshoe statement, such as the antecedent and the consequent match up perfectly, giving us that diagonal line when we cross-cancel. We get out the leftover parts moving from left to right. So that's hypothetical syllogism. I think here in 7-1, this is probably our most difficult rule to spot, but with a little bit of practice here, certainly you'll want to memorize the rule. With a little bit of practice, you'll be able to recognize the pattern without any troubles whatsoever.